Though again, the first Actua post did pretty well, so I thought I would show a little bit more about this game. From some reading online, it is considered a classic name, although it is pretty much unknown and virtually no one cares about it, but some people like it and think it's a classic. One of the reasons is because it had 400 teams plus. Also had the option, besides club teams and national teams, of custom teams, and you can see I have 24, 12 here and 12 here. I have 24 custom teams. Some of them are fictional teams from areas, big cities, some from small areas that would never have a sports team. Some are duplicates of Spain, like Spain 2, Austria 2, France 2. Austria 2 has a boosted up team, they're not all Austrian. But the France and Spain team are basically copies of the national team from that period. Team Canada is a kind of a goofy team of my friends from that era. And some people that aren't friends are just kind of goofy people I knew. It's kind of a satirical team. Some of these teams are former professional hockey teams. Anyway, it's kind of like things I thought might be cool for names, how I thought they might be cool. And we've had tournaments before. Problem with tournaments with simulation games is because the computer tries to simulate scores, is that it's very hard to have a fair match between two people, because probably someone is going to have goals against them that they didn't significantly cause, or the person that scored didn't significantly cause it. So when we play tournaments, we try to disallow goals that seem to be cheating, or your player didn't do what you wanted it to do, or your mouse so-called malfunctions. But it's hard to have a tournament. It would be hard to have a legit world tournament. In this game, or UEFA 99, 2000, the cheating was even worse. And every game I ever played, I tried FIFA, I found the same thing. Simulation was too strong. I haven't played a recent FIFA game. Maybe they've eliminated some of the simulation, I don't know. But to me, it's very hard to have a tournament, a serious tournament with people versus people, when the simulation's too strong. I'm quite good against computer, and at my best, I'm probably an excellent player. I haven't played this very much the last few years, but kind of now I'm working more and not doing security. I'm probably going to play this more just to relax. But playing a human being is much more difficult when they're good than in a computer, because they're not as predictable. One of the functions in this game, I'm going to play with Durham Redfield here, is if I wanted to change a player, you go into players. And sorry that the screen doesn't completely match. You can't see the whole screen, but the screen with my XP is much bigger than the screen with my Windows. And that's what the entire thing looks like. But it's just, with my camera, it's very difficult to get it lined up completely right. If I give you too much of a top view, then you're missing some of the bottom view. So it's kind of hit and miss. Anyway, say I want to change the backup goalie, for example. He's the third string goalie. I could go to one of these leagues. We happen to be an Argentinian league. Find a backup goalie that I can afford. Has to be a cheap one. Because he's only worth a few million. So maybe we have to go to the Belgium league. Still no goalie. So maybe we have to go to a lower English league. Yeah, we could find a goalie for $2 million if we wanted him. So that's how that would work. Another function is, I mentioned in the first post on Actua Chucky, that besides club teams and national teams and the custom teams I just showed you, There's also cheat teams, and they have different codes for them. So that's one of the cheat teams. It's actually a 10-star cheat team. The reason he's saying I'm cheating is because when the game came out, you were supposed to win tournaments to get all the editor teams, but I got to the point where I could win every tournament against computers, so I just looked online at the time and I found all the cheat codes. But I tend to just like my own teams. The reason I like my custom teams is because I can increase the speed. The speed is very important in this game when you're playing computer. So I make my players very fast. And then the next most important stat would be basically defensive, and the ability for them to check and tackle. So I'll just show you that briefly again. So for example, with this team, there's the kits, home and away. They should be wearing the red. And I designed these, by the way, myself. I should have had more white in there, but they look pretty good. I designed these at the time. And there's a bug now where I can no longer change them without deleting all my teams because of they being oversaved so many times. But there's a reset button, and out of all the 400 teams, you can pick any of the jerseys. So it's quite a good feature considering the game's from 1998. So we go into Durham Red Fury. And we can see tackling after speed is the most important thing. So my top players, for example, one of the better players on here, this isn't one of the absolute best teams, but let's say Roy Keane, I gave him 87 tackling, 85 speed. So if I played another human being with one of these teams and they had a regular team, I might have an advantage because I just have so much speed. And if I'm playing someone, maybe someone younger that's faster on the gamepad, be identified as a benefit, me having faster players. Mind you, if I was playing human players, my gamepad skills would increase as far as speed, because you probably against a human being have to use the buttons quicker, and I would develop that skill. So the game I'm going to show you is 10 minutes, Nigeria versus Durham Red Fury. So I go into the lineups, and I'll switch to, I like to play an offensive 4-2-4, but I'll play defensive 4-2-4. And I go back to see who I like. Generally I have, on my custom editor teams, I have 11 top-notch players. If they weren't top-notch players in real life, like Groff, who I just thought was good, I jack up their stats. But what I like to do is I like to have 1 or 2 top-notch players as subs, and then there's 5 subs. 2 to 3 of the subs might be really low as far as value, but they're still good. You want everyone to be able to defend and to score. Have to be able to tackle and score. Otherwise, they're just a waste of space, to be blunt. Okay. So I'm basically going with a pretty good team. I actually saw Robbie Keane play live and score some goals back in 99 to 2001. So I have one kind of high quality player that I jacked his stats up in the subs. The rest are pretty high quality. So you can see the stats, how much better my fictional team is compared to the Nigerian national team, which is one of the better teams. Better as far as tats. Doesn't mean that the computer will not favor them, but I should be at least favored in some ways. But we'll see what happens here. So I'm playing one of the better national sides from 1998 era, and I lived in the UK 99 to 2001.
It's a sunny, fine day for this contest. I'm not sure how to call this match.
And as usual,
Teams will be going all out
I'm going to see how many red cards I can get.
Plenty of chances, and perhaps even a few goals.
So I wouldn't say that Durham Red Fury is one of the better custom teams. They're okay. There's no Zidane. Zidane was like the player then.
Wonderful bending effort. Well, when our machine analyzes the speed,
I don't have Zidane.
I'm sure it will show you just.
If I really wanted to make them better, I'd have Zidane on here. But I don't want it to be too boring and have all the same players in every team.
Come on. 1-0.
But as much as I think, even without the white trim, those red jerseys are quite cool. Probably if I had to play a human being in a tournament, I wouldn't choose Durham. Anyway, you can see how many features this game had for the time. I remember at about the same time I played FIFA, and FIFA did not have near the features that this had. And even about, let's see, my friend who works for DreamWorks, and he's kind of a gamer. I'm not really a computer gamer. He was very impressed about 5 or 6 years ago with this game. Very impressed. He said it was way better than FIFA in many ways, even the FIFA from 5 or 6 years ago. So this game is kind of a cutting-edge game that just because it's not American, it's British, that people don't know about. But if I had unlimited time and money with my, growing computer knowledge, I would actually redo this game. But obviously I don't own the rights to it. Gremlin made this game, and also Actua 1, which we've also played. But I had to play it on the Mac because I never had a PC version, and I recently bought the PC version of Actua 1. But even though it was only for less than $10, neither Howard or I have been able to figure out how to get it to work. It's too slow, and the USB digital gamepads do not work. So anyway, Actua 3 works very well on this, but Actua 1 does not. If I could ever get Actua 1 from 1996 to work on this, I would review it.
Oh dear, that was really a bad challenge. Well, he has no argument with that booking at all. He was far too late, and to be honest, he's lucky to be staying in the pit.
Saw Roy Keane play several times too. He was a very good player.
Good save.
Robbie Keane and Roy Keane I saw play. Robbie Keane for Leeds, Roy Keane for Manchester United.
Good ball.
So this team has some actual stars from the era on it, and some other players I just increased their stats to make them stars.
You just can't give a player of his quality the chances he's had tonight. No surprise, it's a brilliant hat-trick. Yeah, that was a fantastic goal. The part he managed to get into the shot was incredible. The score, 4-0. And they've an absolute mountain to climb now.
So actually this Nigeria team's pretty tough. Even though I'm up 4-0, they're quite fast. They're hard for my defenders to catch. So I'm glad I chose defensive. In real soccer, your strategy is, when you want to play defensive, bring people back, but in computer soccer doesn't necessarily work that way. You have to have enough people to score. You have to kind of attack, but if I don't pick defensive, the computer tends to use simulation, and then I'm left without anyone back. So this is why I play defensive formation, but then I have a formation that actually has a lot of people forwards, if that makes sense.
It's all about body movement. To get that much power into a shot, you need to get the body into the correct position. As the replay will show you, he certainly did that. The 5-0 scoreline depicts a very one-sided contest. Well read. Actua. The referee has signalled a free kick. Most of the players seem to think the offence occurred in the area. There's 1 hours on the training pitch. Certainly paid off. An excellent set piece goal. Well, this is
So I actually haven't scored many free kicks playing this game. The reason is because when we started playing this, we had tournaments.
6-0.
We were so disgusted with the simulation that I actually, and with agreement with people I was playing with, including Chuck, was so disgusted that we actually turned off fouls. We kept offsides, but we turned off fouls and cards. And so, because I don't have much experience because of that with free kicks and penalty kicks, but years later now, started to play this again, I realized that it's just too easy without it. So I like the challenge of having free kicks, and I love getting red cards. And in the meantime, we were playing UEFA, and we get red cards in that. And I think what happened is I realized red cards were fun. So when I brought this game back and started playing it more on this XP computer, we have fouls. So therefore, I'm doing free kicks and scoring on the odd one. The problem with allowing fouls and free kicks is the computer cheats with it. Well, they just got a red card right there. The computer cheats with it, and a lot of their goals will be from free kicks.
And I don't think anyone expected to see the red card there. At least the ball will be offended.
So because now one of my men is off, Groff is off, that means that I have to put my sub in. And I have one kind of really high quality player I built up, actually two, because I have Vandergaal. One out player and one goalkeeper. So just replacing with the guy boosted up.
Managers forced into a substitution.
So this actually is, I'm exchanging a little bit of defense for more offense, so it's not bad. Basically put in a striker for an injured midfielder.
Really good positioning there for the goalkeeper. Keeper never really got hold of that. Nice touch.
Cruz is very good, Brazil player. Lots of pace.
He was always going to be beaten by the wicked curve on the ball. Made a good effort the goalkeeper, but to no avail.
Well, it's a magnificent finish. Just look at the way he breezes past the defence with sheep.
That's 7-0. The keeper gathers that one.
How many times do I have to check the guy there? And he still gets a shot. That's what I'm talking about with a simulation. Real life,
It's a good kick for the keeper.
there's no way he'd have got that shot in. Especially the power. Ridiculous. That's how they get goals generally.
There's plenty of power on that shot.
So I'll fully admit, if I was playing human beings over the years and now, I'd be a better player, but most guys don't want to play FIFA. It just doesn't interest me. I played it, I tried FIFA, and what I didn't like about it compared to the British games was it was just so much pressing the speed button. You press the speed button to beat the final defender and you try to score. It was boring. And I found it frustrating how the simulation
On this kind of form, there seems to be no stopping it. That makes it
really frustrated me.
Oh, it's lovely to see a goal like this. He puts in a strong surging run that takes him past a couple of defenders. Possibly they should have...
I have no interest in FIFA.
Oh, yeah, a vicious shot.
I also tried EA's
What do you say?
NHL game, same thing, I didn't like it. And actually my friend I say now works for DreamWorks, he worked for EA. He was the one that was so impressed with Actua Soccer. I thought it was quite a compliment because he worked for EA and they did, FIFA and all these other games more modern, and he was impressed with this game. Very impressed with this game.
Great goal.
So I think this game's a classic. It's just a shame someone doesn't redo it.
Space for himself and positioned the ball perfectly past the keeper to score.
If they just modernized the graphics, modernized the teams, a little smoother gameplay for 2016, and got rid of the simulation and really made it about individual human skill, this could be a phenomenal game. Excellent game right now in 1998.
One-sided as this. I think there's got to be some changes early in the second half if there's going to be any hope of them getting back into the game.
So 9-0, this is pretty one-sided. And I'm doing pretty well considering I think they have pretty good pace up front. It could be dangerous.
Oh, we are right. Some of the passing today have been little short of first class.
Okay, lob time.
Keeper looks to be good ball. And with a single pass, the defence is split wide open. There's no way he could have held that shot.
The sub scores.
From the goalkeeper's glove hand. Wonderful strike.
Looking at the shot again in the replay, you can see clearly the power behind it.
So a little philosophical commentary now. Listen to Focus on the Family and stuff, and Christian ministers, and I hear, oh well, men are playing video games instead of going out on dates and stuff. I don't think a person should, and I'm not doing it now, and I try not to do it earlier, a person shouldn't play video games at the expense of social life or ministry. But I stopped playing this for years, and I did so many blog articles and social stuff, but I kind of prayed about this, and this is actually a way for me to relax, which I think the Lord blessed me with, and also Howard's been busy with his brothers, Fragile X, and just gives Howard and I a little bit more time to spend together as friends and talk about things. And Howard's actually a great help with the satire blog, so I think computer games in moderation are good, but as I've done it in the past, and I will do it again, I won't let computer games get in the way of social life or ministry or whatever. So I'm not single because I play computer games. In fact, I'm meeting more people online and offline now than ever before. Joining a mega church this month, involved in different ministry stuff, and I'm working in ministry. So my view is this is like watching TV, but better than a lot of TV. I watch like Knowledge Network quite a bit now, but this is better than a lot of TV because at least you're thinking. But again, it's a legitimate criticism within the church if people are not asking people out on a date or friends or to play this. But that was never me. Howard and I played this because we enjoyed it, and this is a very secular area of the world, as I've blogged about before. We were at smaller churches, and we did try socializing, but it's a very unchurched, Vancouver is very unchurched. The Abbotsford area and parts of Langley and Surrey, where I'm attending the mega church, going to join it, they're a little bit more Christianized, but nothing like the United States. All Americans and Europeans have to realize that here in BC we're more like Europe and the US. We're quite secular.
Incredible. It's difficult to believe how he got the power. The ball simply flew.
And as I blogged about, I'm not interested in dating someone by the social rules just because they're my age or my level of looks. I happen to work out a lot. I have a 12-pack instead of a 6-pack. My apnea is much better. It used to be, that's why I'm actually looking better in my photos, and maybe even younger, some people say. I don't think that I should just go out with someone my own age because I'm my age. In fact, I find it offensive when Christians don't think more and use lazy thinking. And one of the things I appreciate about the church I'm going to now and joining is pastor supportive. In fact, the one pastor I talked to on Sunday, he said, yeah, don't go to some age group thing. Just work here, minister here, and just meet people. I mean, just so much common sense. When I listen to stuff like Focus on the Family, I don't always get that. I'm disturbed by some of the lack of depth. Well, here's an interesting philosophical thing. This will be controversial, but
I can't think what he intended there.
Preference. So should people just go by preference? I know Focus on the Family did a show where they had a dating site guy come on. It was an LDS, and they were talking about people's preference. And the first thing that's most important is age. So the assumption is, well, if you're a 20-something-year-old female, especially, and you're attractive and cute, and your preference is a guy 2 years older than you, well, that's what you should do. Well, I'm thinking, no, not necessarily from a Christian perspective. And if you're a 35-plus-year-old man like me, well, then you don't have the preference anymore. Well, not necessarily. What about God's perfect will? What about seeking God's perfect will? So, I'll be honest with you. My preference is like a 6'1" blonde from Scandinavia. That's my preference. But should I only accept my preference? I don't think so. I think I'm finite and sinful. But the reason I shouldn't just go with my preference isn't because I'm 35 plus and I have less options because more people are married. It's because I should be seeking God's perfect will. In the same way, the 20-something-year-old female that's better than average looking, most of them just because they're young. They won't look that good when they're 40. A few do, but not many. They too, if they're Christians, should be seeking God's perfect will. But what I hear from a lot of Christian ministries, and particularly in the States, is, oh, it's all preference. Well, no. If we're Christians, we're not supposed to go with our preference primarily. We have a preference. We can pray for our preference, but we're supposed to go with God's will. And what happens is, I think, is that in the States, particularly with these ministries, they're so strong in this preference thing. Like, they make it sound like, well, because you have preference, anyone that's not your preference, you can just reject and treat like crap. So, if you don't like black people, or you don't like Orientals, they're not a preference, so don't even give them a chance. And if they show interest in you, don't even talk to them. Block them on Facebook if they want to go on a date with you. And I mean, that's my problem. So, preference is just preference. We have a sinful nature, and we have finite reasoning abilities. Preference is preference.
A great result. A fantastically big scoring game.
That's my little sermon. But I would, listening to this, I would challenge you to think about it. Is preference God's perfect will necessarily, or is it just preference? I mean, my views have changed. I like women of different races more. I was never racist, but I'm more attracted to them. Should we go with preference, or should we go with God's will? And I don't think we should assume that preference is necessarily what God's going to meet. It's just preference. And I think, especially with younger people, just the assumption by many ministries in Canada, and also particularly in the States, that preference is your divine right, and that's what you should go for. This is why you have a lot of this attitude, well, you just reject someone that isn't your preference. And you know what? That really risks a person living in God's permissible will, not perfect will, because, quite frankly, they're just closed-minded. Anyway, thanks for watching.